My name is Jake, and I once believed in the unbreakable power of love. It was a conviction that anchored my soul and filled my heart with warmth. I envisioned a life where love was the steadfast foundation upon which happiness was built. I thought I had it all figured out. My one true love, Emily, by my side, and a future that sparkled with promise. The dreams we shared seemed like a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of loyalty and understanding. I longed for a life filled with joy, where we could grow old together, surrounded by laughter and the pitter-patter of our children's feet. But life, as we all know, doesn't always adhere to our plans. I was hit with the reality that love, despite its strength, can be tested by distance and circumstance. For 2 years, we managed the complexities of a long-distance relationship. I believed my unwavering love could bridge the gap between us, that it could withstand the strain of time and space. Emily was my rock, my confidant, the one who helped me navigate through my indecision about my career. Yet, as I continued to drift without a clear direction, the pressure began to take its toll on us both. I still remember the day it all changed, the day when the very foundation of my beliefs began to crumble. I realized that while I was working tirelessly to improve myself and build a future, Emily was growing restless. The weight of expectations began to fracture the bond we had painstakingly built. I convinced myself that our love was enough to weather any storm, but deep down, a nagging fear lingered. Was it truly unbreakable? Or was it just a beautiful illusion that I clung to, hoping it would never shatter? The moment of truth came, like a thunderclap on a clear day. I remember sitting on my bed, phone in hand, scrolling through social media, when I stumbled upon a photo that felt like a punch to the gut. There it was, Emily smiling and laughing with another man. My heart sank as I scrolled through the comments, each one like a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. The world around me faded away, and all I could focus on was the crushing weight of betrayal. How could she move on so quickly? It was a question that spiraled through my mind as I sat there in stunned silence, grappling with a reality I never wanted to face. When I finally gathered the courage to confront her, I was met with a defensive wall. Emily insisted that she had only met him a week after our breakup, but those words felt like salt in an open wound. It shattered my world to know that while I was still reeling from the end of our relationship, she had already found someone new to fill the void. I had always viewed her as my partner in everything, and to hear that she had emotionally detached from me so swiftly was beyond painful. The hardest part was accepting that this was the end of what I believed we had, an unbreakable love that would conquer all obstacles. My self-esteem plummeted, and I was left to confront the harsh truth. I was no longer the person she turned to for strength. Instead, I became a shadow of my former self, haunted by memories of the love we once shared and the dreams we had built together. The realization that I was no longer a part of her life felt like a death, and I struggled to find a way to breathe through the grief. Acceptance didn't come easy. I found myself caught in a relentless cycle of denial, anger, and profound sadness. Each day was a battle against the urge to reach out to Emily to plead for answers that I knew I wouldn't get. I remember standing in front of the mirror, questioning everything about myself. What was wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? Those questions echoed in my mind like a broken record, drowning out any rational thought. I was a man who had loved fiercely, yet here I was, left to pick up the pieces of a shattered dream. The hardest part was realizing that my feelings were valid, yet they felt so intertwined with guilt and shame. I had always believed that love could conquer any obstacle. Yet with each passing day, the truth became clearer. Our love wasn't strong enough to withstand the distance and my personal struggles. I struggled to accept that Emily was happier without me, while I felt like I was falling apart. It was a bitter pill to swallow. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself isolating from friends and family. I put on a brave face, but inside, I was a tempest of conflicting emotions. I wanted to reach out to my friends for support, but I feared their pity. I dreaded the conversations where they would ask how I was doing, and I would have to admit that I was struggling. The thought of burdening them with my pain felt unbearable. I began to understand that acceptance was not just about letting go of Emily, but also about acknowledging my own worth and finding the strength to rebuild my life. It took countless sleepless nights and endless reflection before I realized that this struggle was part of my healing journey. I had to confront my own demons and accept that it was okay to feel lost. Slowly, I started to understand that acceptance didn't mean I had to forget Emily or our love. Instead, it was about recognizing that it was time for me to take control of my own narrative, to seek happiness within myself before searching for it in someone else. The breakup with Emily took a significant toll on my self-esteem. I felt like I had been stripped of my identity, reduced to nothing more than a man who had lost the love of his life. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw not the man I once was, but a shadow of my former self, a man burdened with doubt and insecurity. I used to pride myself on my ambitions, my goals, and my drive, but suddenly, all of that felt meaningless. My career was stagnant, and the future I had envisioned with Emily seemed like a distant dream. I began to question everything about myself, my worth, my attractiveness, and my ability to be a good partner. I replayed every moment of our relationship in my head, analyzing where I went wrong and what I could have done differently. Did I not give her enough attention? Was I not supportive enough? Those questions haunted me, feeding the monster of self-doubt that had taken residence in my mind. The more I thought about it, the more I spiraled into a dark place where I felt unworthy of love and happiness. I noticed the change in how I carried myself. I stopped looking people in the eye, fearing they could see the pain hidden beneath my facade. I withdrew from social situations, convinced that my friends wouldn't want to be around someone so broken. It was a vicious cycle. I felt unworthy, so I isolated myself, which only deepened my feelings of inadequacy. I longed for the days when I could walk into a room with confidence, my head held high, but that seemed like a distant memory. During this time, I began to realize that my self-worth had been too closely tied to my relationship with Emily. It was painful to acknowledge, but I had allowed my happiness to depend on another person's affection. It was a harsh lesson, but I knew I had to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. I started seeking small victories, setting achievable goals for myself, whether it was hitting the gym or dedicating time to my hobbies. Each step forward felt monumental, reminding me that I was still capable of growth and change. Gradually, I learned that rebuilding my self-esteem was not about forgetting Emily, but about rediscovering who I was beyond our relationship. I started to embrace my passions, reconnecting with the things that brought me joy and fulfillment. It was a long journey, but I realized that self-worth comes from within, not from another person's validation. I needed to believe in myself again, and that belief would be the foundation for any future relationships I might have. The days that followed the breakup were nothing short of a whirlwind of emotions. One moment, I was engulfed in a deep sadness, feeling like I had lost a part of myself, and the next, I was battling waves of anger and resentment. The world around me felt distorted, as if I were living in a fog that refused to lift. I couldn't understand how someone who had once been my greatest source of joy could now be the reason for my profound sorrow. I vividly remember the nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, grappling with the aching void left in my heart. Every song on the radio seemed to trigger memories of Emily, pulling at the fragile strings of my emotions. I replayed our moments together, the laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams we shared, only to be met with the crushing realization that those moments were now tainted with loss. I felt hollow, as if the vibrant colors of my life had been drained away, leaving only shades of gray. Anger quickly became a companion in my grief. I found myself questioning everything about our relationship. How could she move on so easily? Did our love mean so little to her? These thoughts festered, turning my heartache into a bitterness that threatened to consume me. I knew I should be happy for her, that she deserved to find happiness, but all I could feel was a sense of betrayal and abandonment. I had devoted myself to our relationship, and it felt like my efforts had been in vain. Despite the emotional turmoil, I knew I had to find a way to cope. I began writing in a journal, pouring out my feelings onto the pages. Each entry became a cathartic release, a way to confront my pain without fear of judgment. I found solace in the act of writing, allowing me to process my emotions and gradually untangle the knots of heartache that had tightened around my heart. I wrote about my dreams, my fears, and the lessons I was learning, hoping that one day the pain would give way to healing. I also reached out to friends, admitting my struggles and allowing them to support me in ways I hadn't anticipated. It was a humbling experience to show vulnerability, but it reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey. My friends rallied around me, offering comfort, distraction, and a sense of community that I desperately needed. They helped me laugh again, even if it was just for a moment, reminding me that joy could still exist amid the pain. Through this emotional turmoil, I began to understand that heartbreak, while devastating, was also a teacher. It forced me to confront parts of myself I had previously ignored and to embrace the complexity of my feelings. It wasn't easy, but I started to see the glimmers of hope through the cracks of my heartache, reminding me that healing was possible. As the weight of my heartbreak became increasingly heavy, I realized I couldn't carry it alone any longer. The nights spent in solitude, wrestling with my emotions, were taking a toll on my mental well-being. It was time to reach out to the people who cared about me, my friends and family, who had always been my anchor during turbulent times. I started with my best friend, Mark, who had been there since my college days. One evening, I found myself sitting on his couch, the familiar surroundings a comfort amidst the chaos in my heart. As I recounted the story of Emily and the heartbreak I was experiencing, the tears flowed freely. Mark listened intently, his silence providing a safe space for me to express my pain without fear of judgment. When I finished speaking, he simply wrapped an arm around me and assured me that it was okay to feel lost. Through my conversations with Mark, I began to realize that I wasn't alone in my struggles. He shared his own experiences of heartbreak, recounting how he had navigated his own tumultuous relationships in the past. His honesty provided a sense of relief, reminding me that my pain was valid and shared by many. I found solace in the knowledge that others had emerged from their heartbreaks stronger, and more resilient. Mark's words resonated with me. Time will heal, but you have to let people in. Encouraged by our conversation, I reached out to my family as well. I scheduled dinner with my parents, who had always been my pillars of support. Over a home-cooked meal, I opened up about the breakup, the sadness I felt, and my struggles with self-esteem. Their unconditional love was palpable, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. My mum held my hand tightly, her eyes filled with empathy as she shared her own stories of love and loss, emphasizing that every ending was a chance for new beginnings. During this time, I also made an effort to reconnect with other friends I had drifted away from while dating Emily. I sent out messages inviting them to grab coffee or go for a hike. To my surprise, many were eager to reconnect and catch up. These moments became a refuge from my heartbreak, allowing me to rediscover parts of myself that I had set aside. We shared laughter and stories, and I could feel the heaviness of my heart lifting, even if just for a little while. As I embraced the support from my friends and family, I started to recognize that leaning on others wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a testament to the strength of our bonds. I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about my well-being, and their encouragement fueled my determination to heal and move forward. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself at a crossroads. The initial shock of my breakup with Emily was slowly morphing into a deep-seated pain that lingered in my chest. But through the support of my friends and family, I began to recognize a flicker of hope within me, a whisper that urged me to take charge of my healing journey. I realized that I needed to find strength within myself, to channel my pain into something constructive. I took a step back and assessed my life, acknowledging the areas where I had felt stagnant for far too long. The idea of attending graduate school had always been on my mind, but I had shelved it during my relationship with Emily. Now it seemed like the perfect opportunity to invest in myself and my future. With a newfound determination, I enrolled in a few preparatory courses. The first class I attended was nerve-wracking. I felt like a fish out of water among younger students who seemed so sure of themselves. But as the days progressed, I found comfort in the learning environment. I realized I had a wealth of experience and knowledge to contribute. This was not just about academics, it was about rediscovering my passions and igniting a spark that had been dormant for too long. In tandem with my studies, I began to explore mindfulness practices. I discovered the benefits of meditation and yoga, which helped me cultivate a sense of calm amidst the chaos of my emotions. I dedicated time each morning to meditate, focusing on my breath and grounding myself in the present moment. Slowly, I learned to quiet the storm inside my mind and foster a sense of inner peace. This practice became a refuge, providing me with clarity and perspective as I navigated my healing journey. I also made a conscious effort to reconnect with hobbies I had neglected during my relationship. I dusted off my guitar and started strumming chords, letting the music express what I struggled to articulate in words. Writing became another outlet, where I poured my thoughts and feelings onto the page. Each note I played and every word I wrote felt like a cathartic release, allowing me to process my emotions and transform them into something beautiful. As I immersed myself in my studies and creative pursuits, I began to feel stronger. The pain of my breakup didn't vanish overnight, but it gradually morphed into a source of resilience. I learned to embrace my emotions, understanding that it was okay to grieve the loss of my relationship while also celebrating my personal growth. Throughout this journey of self-discovery, I sought inspiration from various sources. books, podcasts, and motivational speakers, I came across a quote that struck a chord with me: "The wound is the place where the light enters you." This resonated deeply, reminding me that my heartbreak could become a catalyst for transformation. Finding strength in my vulnerability became a powerful lesson. I learned that it was okay to seek help when I needed it, to lean on others, and to be open about my struggles. It was a process, but with every step I took, I felt a little lighter, a little more in control of my narrative. As I continued to grow and heal, I began to envision a brighter future for myself. I was no longer defined by my past relationship. I was emerging as a stronger, more resilient version of myself. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the strength I had discovered within. As the months rolled by, my journey of self-improvement took on new dimensions. With every lesson I learned in class and every moment I spent reflecting on my experiences, I began to understand the importance of financial independence and personal growth. I realized that to build a future filled with happiness and stability, I needed to focus not just on my emotional health, but also on my financial well-being. I dove into research about personal finance and investing. It felt like opening a treasure chest of knowledge that had previously remained locked away. I began to attend workshops and read books on financial literacy, learning about budgeting, saving, and investing. I discovered the power of compound interest and how making small, informed financial decisions could lead to significant long-term gains. With my newfound knowledge, I created a budget that allowed me to save more while still enjoying some of the simple pleasures in life. I cut back on unnecessary expenses, like dining out frequently, and instead focused on cooking at home. I found joy in experimenting with new recipes and hosting small dinner gatherings with friends. These moments not only strengthened my social circle, but also helped me appreciate the richness of life beyond material possessions. I also began to explore side hustles that aligned with my passions and skills. I took on freelance writing projects and leveraged my academic background to tutor students. Each small success built my confidence and reinforced the idea that I was capable of achieving my goals. The more I earned, the more motivated I became to pursue financial independence. As I worked hard to enhance my financial situation, I also focused on my physical health. I started going to the gym regularly, setting fitness goals that challenged me both physically and mentally. Exercise became a vital part of my daily routine, offering a productive outlet for my stress and a way to boost my self-esteem. I remembered how I used to shy away from activities that required physical strength, but now I was pushing my limits and discovering a newfound sense of power within myself. The transformation I experienced was not just about becoming richer in terms of money. It was about becoming richer in life experiences. I began to appreciate the value of relationships, knowledge, and personal growth. I surrounded myself with positive influences, friends who motivated me to chase my dreams, and mentors who provided guidance along the way. Their belief in me fueled my desire to become the best version of myself. Throughout this process, I also reflected on my past relationship with Emily. While it was painful to acknowledge the love we shared, I realized that my journey was not solely about her or the heartbreak. It was about reclaiming my identity and understanding that my worth was not tied to my romantic relationships. I was worthy of love and happiness, but first, I needed to cultivate those feelings within myself. With each passing day, I became more resilient. I learned to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth rather than setbacks. The struggles I faced became stepping stones that propelled me forward, and I started to see life as a series of lessons rather than a series of obstacles. This shift in perspective was liberating, and I felt empowered to take control of my future. As I continued on this path, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement about what lay ahead. I was no longer the man who had defined himself solely by his relationship with Emily. I was becoming a well-rounded individual, rich in experiences, knowledge, and strength. The financial and personal growth I was cultivating laid the groundwork for a brighter, more fulfilling future. As I continued to evolve into a stronger version of myself, I began to open up to the idea of dating again. Initially, it felt daunting. The memories of my relationship with Emily were still fresh, and the wounds of betrayal had not completely healed. But I also understood that to fully embrace the new life I was building, I had to let go of the past and allow myself to experience love again. I started by casually going out with friends more often. I reconnected with old acquaintances and expanded my social circle. It was during one of these outings that I met Laura. She was different from anyone I had ever known. Adventurous, free-spirited, and full of life. Our connection was instant, but I was cautious. The shadows of my past loomed large, and I was determined not to rush into anything. We began to hang out regularly, exploring new places, enjoying late-night talks, and sharing our dreams and aspirations. With every conversation, I could feel my heart slowly starting to open. Laura had a way of making me laugh and see the world through a different lens. Her positive energy was infectious, and I found myself looking forward to our time together. Yet, I couldn't shake the fear that I would inevitably hurt her, or worse, that she would hurt me. I decided to be transparent with Laura about my past. One evening, as we sat at a cozy cafe, I shared my experiences with Emily, the heartbreak, and the lessons I had learned since then. To my relief, she listened intently, her eyes reflecting understanding and compassion. Laura didn't shy away from the truth. Instead, she encouraged me to embrace my journey and be proud of the man I was becoming. It was a pivotal moment, and for the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of my past begin to lift. As we continued to date, I took small but significant steps to rebuild trust within myself and in our budding relationship. I set boundaries, communicated openly, and reminded myself that not every relationship had to follow the same script as the last. I was determined to appreciate what Laura brought into my life without comparing her to Emily or projecting my fears onto her. In the weeks that followed, I learned to let my guard down. I found joy in the simple moments we shared, whether it was hiking in the mountains, cooking together, or cuddling on the couch watching movies. Each shared experience was a testament to the fact that love could indeed be different the second time around. I was learning to savor the present instead of dwelling on past disappointments. Still, I grappled with moments of insecurity. Was I worthy of love again? Did I truly deserve happiness after everything that had happened? These questions haunted me, but I was committed to finding answers through open dialogue with Laura. I shared my vulnerabilities with her, and to my surprise, she embraced them. Her unwavering support made me realize that healing wasn't a linear path. It was messy, beautiful, and full of growth. As our relationship deepened, I found myself falling for Laura in ways I hadn't anticipated. While I still carried remnants of my past, they no longer defined me. Instead, they served as reminders of the lessons I had learned about love, trust, and the importance of being true to oneself. I was becoming not just a stronger man, but a more complete one, ready to embrace the complexities of love without fear. As my relationship with Laura blossomed, I found myself in a place I had almost forgotten existed, a state of genuine happiness. It was as if the sun had finally broken through the clouds that had shadowed my heart for so long. With every laugh shared and every moment spent together, I realized that love could indeed flourish again, even after the pain of heartbreak. Laura had a unique way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary. Simple outings became grand adventures, whether it was a spontaneous road trip or a quiet evening watching the stars. She encouraged me to explore my interests, and in turn, I found new passions that reignited my spirit. I took up painting, something I had loved in my youth, but abandoned during the turmoil of my previous relationship. With Laura's support, I even showcased some of my work in a local gallery, an achievement that filled me with pride and joy. In this new chapter, I learned to embrace vulnerability. I opened up to Laura about my fears, dreams, and the lingering shadows of my past. She listened without judgment and always encouraged me to seek the happiness I deserved. I realized that love is not just about the good times. It's also about sharing the struggles and lifting each other up during difficult moments. It was liberating to express my feelings without the fear of rejection or disappointment. As we continued to grow closer, I began to let go of the guilt I had felt over moving on from Emily. I understood that my journey was my own, and embracing love with Laura didn't diminish the importance of my past relationship. Instead, it honored the lessons I had learned and the strength I had gained from that experience. Our connection deepened, and soon we were discussing the future, traveling together, exploring new cultures, and building a life based on mutual respect and love. I felt a sense of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. Laura brought out the best in me, inspiring me to dream bigger and work harder. I felt an immense gratitude for her presence in my life. One night, as we watched the sunset from a hilltop, I realized just how far I had come. I turned to Laura and expressed my feelings, how she had transformed my life, and how I was falling in love with her. I watched her eyes light up, a smile spreading across her face as she returned my sentiment. In that moment, I understood that this was what true love felt like, an unconditional bond that didn't come with the weight of expectations or comparisons to the past. The joy we shared radiated into every aspect of my life. I became more ambitious in my career, motivated by the belief that I could create a fulfilling future for us both. I sought new opportunities and pushed myself to step outside my comfort zone. With Laura by my side, I felt empowered to tackle challenges that once seemed insurmountable. As the months passed, I found a renewed sense of purpose. The scars from my past were still there, but they no longer held me back. Instead, they became a part of my story, reminders of how far I had traveled and the strength I had discovered within myself. I was no longer the man who was defined by heartbreak. I was a man who had learned to embrace love, to trust again, and to find joy in the present moment. With Laura, I discovered not just new love, but a profound sense of happiness that filled the void I had once thought would never heal. Together, we were creating memories that would last a lifetime, and as I looked into her eyes, I knew I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As time passed, Mark slowly emerged from the shadow of his heartbreak. The pain, though still present, became more manageable as he dedicated himself to self-improvement and focused on building a life he could be proud of. He found strength in his career, becoming more successful and confident than ever before. Mark's journey of healing led him to embrace the idea that true happiness comes not from a relationship, but from within. Then came Rachel, a woman who appreciated him not for what he could become, but for who he was. Unlike his previous relationship, there were no pressures or unrealistic expectations. With Rachel, trust wasn't a battle, but something that grew naturally over time. Mark realized that love could be a partnership built on mutual respect and shared growth, rather than a one-sided effort to keep someone happy. In this new chapter of his life, Mark discovered that the real prize wasn't winning someone's love, but finding peace and happiness within himself. And in doing so, he became the kind of man who could truly share his life with someone else, not out of need, but out of choice. The story closes with Mark finally at peace, his life richer and more fulfilling than he had ever imagined. Through his struggle, he learned that sometimes heartbreak leads to the greatest rewards: self-awareness, healing, and the chance to begin again.